A little lackluster. I'm not going to do that whole church thing. So I'm just going to say, welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here. We're going to start our program on time. Hello? Amen. So I am Dr. Amelia Kennedy, and I'm so grateful to be in community with you all here tonight for a 4-day weekend. One time for the city of Atlanta. Okay. I know that's right. Okay, so thank you for making the time to be here tonight. I really appreciate it, especially with all going on this weekend, that you could be, again, anywhere in the city, but you're here with us. And also thank you for choosing community and connection in a time that can feel isolated, as so many of us are trying to make sense of the labor market and how artificial intelligence is altering the labor landscape to change what we do and how we do it. Tonight's gathering is inspired by my study, 404 Job Not Found, What Workforce Training Can't Fix for Black Atlantans in the Age of AI, which was published in February. I conducted this research through a term-bound grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation while working as a labor, race, and technology researcher at the Data and Society Research and Policy Institute. The work comes out of a months-long ethnographic study in the city of Atlanta, where I engaged and listened to workers, job seekers, educators, and community leaders as they navigated rapid technological change, economic insecurity and uncertainty, and the very real pressure to continuously upskill in order to stay afloat. This time last year, I was conducting some of the earliest fieldwork for this study during AI Day to Day, during 4-day weekend. So it means a lot to me a year later to be back here at this community event, sharing and talking about some of the themes of that work with you all today. What I've learned through my ethnographic research is that while job training and digital skilling programs can absolutely open doors, training alone can't solve the deeper structural barriers that shape who gets access to opportunity, who is left navigating instability, and whose labor is most easily displaced. And I don't mind sounding like an owl when I ask who, and all the work that I do, because it's really about you, the people, and your ability to live, and not just to survive in Atlanta, but to really thrive in Atlanta. I'm a cultural anthropologist, both by training and by nature. I'm not the kind of researcher to publish work about a community without discussing the work with that community. I'm not the kind of researcher to only share my work within research and academic circles. I'm the kind of researcher that works for and with people, and the people I work with in my study have expressed frustration around knowing that Atlanta has resources, but not knowing how to access those resources. So I wanted to create a warm and welcoming space where people could meaningfully engage and connect with organizations providing pathways to opportunities for what? For free. This is all for free. And this event is for free because of Atlanta Interdisciplinary AI Network, who granted me a seed grant to host and produce this event for the city of Atlanta. Right, shout out to AI. Thank you. Tonight's participating tabling organizations are capital B Atlanta, who is also our media partner, the City of Refuge, and Pursuit Career Partners, Soil to CEO, Subsoon, and Technologists of Color. Tonight's program is organized and hosted by the Black in Real Life Network, which is a media and community network I founded in 2020 to explore the conditions shaping Black labor in real time through research, media production, and community gatherings. While I will offer my heartfelt thanks to everyone who contributed to this event later tonight, again, I do want to thank AI for awarding me with the seed grant and Capital B for supporting this program as a media partner. In this space tonight is a curated community resource fair, a panel conversation, and a fireside chat. We also have a community insights lab in the second conference room to your left from the venue entrance, where you can share your perspective and learn from others in a hands-on activity. So tonight, I invite you to move through the space with curiosity by connecting with the organizations in the lobby, adding your voice to our community insights lab, submitting questions during the talks, checking out the Black in Real Life merge table, and most importantly, getting to know one another. While you navigate the space, please enjoy our complimentary snack bar with waters donated by Topo Chico, and please check out our beverage vendor, Gojo CATL. This is a Black woman-owned business and maker of cold-pressed juices and herbal infusions that has been ranked among the best in Georgia, because only the best for all of you. Yeah. My hope is that tonight offers both resources and reflection, community, and connection. Let this evening be a reminder that you are not alone, because we are all in this together. Thank you again for being here. Let's begin. All right, I'm so excited to introduce our first panel. Our first discussion tonight centers two groups navigating some of the most significant shifts in today's labor market. Recent college graduates entering an increasingly unstable entry-level landscape, and Black women continuing to navigate persistent barriers to career growth and advancement. Recent data from the Economic Policy Institute shows that fewer Black women are participating in the workforce, and more of those seeking work are facing unemployment. Even more striking to me is that Black women with college degrees saw some of the steepest drops in employment over the past year, reminding us that even education is not insulating people from the shifts happening in today's labor market. We're honored to have a panelist from the Economic Policy Institute with us tonight to help ground our discussion in the broader economic realities shaping work and opportunity. At this time, I'd like to invite our panelists and moderator to come to the stage, and I'll invite each person to introduce themselves, sharing their name, what they do, and why this topic matters to them. Once everyone has introduced themselves, I'll hand it over to Latisha, who will guide us into the conversation. So please join me in welcoming our panel, as I call them one by one. Let's start with Melissa Drue. And then we'll move on to Jasmine Payne-Patterson, and I'll go back around, make sure everyone gets introduced themselves. There you go. And then we'll move on to Andrea P. Miller. And Mo Wisdom. Last but certainly not least is our moderator, Latisha Jones. And I'm going to hand it off to Melissa to introduce herself, and we'll go on a line, ending with Latisha, who will lead the conversation from there.
All right, can you guys hear me? All right, how's everyone doing? Doing good. Well, first of all, I just want to thank Anuli for the opportunity to be here and be in such a great space. My name is Melissa Drue. I'm the Director for Hiring and Learning at Delta Airlines, and I have the opportunity to come and spend some time with you all this evening. I actually am a native Texan, so I have to be honest in that, but I have some roots here in Atlanta. I was just sharing a bit. I was born here in Decatur, and life has a funny way of bringing you full circle, and so it's really been a full circle life moment for me the last 4 years to be able to come back to Atlanta and to find community. And it was important for me to join in this conversation. The space that I work in, I have an opportunity to help the next generation coming into the workforce, as well as those who continue to be in our workforce, and what that looks like as we introduce AI responsibly and things of that nature. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, and thank you again for having me. I think I'm just gonna pass it.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here. So Amelia has put together something so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of this. I don't even know where Amelia is. I just keep looking for her. But I'm so grateful to be here with all of you all. My name is Jasmine Payne-Patterson. I'm a senior state policy analyst strategist at the Economic Policy Institute. And I am here for all of you. I'm so excited to be in community with you. I'm so excited to bring in 404 week with you all and just get it started off. I believe in the power of education and of knowledge and democratizing that. So I don't think that a lot of this information that we have should just be like stuffed up on a website somewhere, something like that. Like the purpose of this event is I believe in to make sure we're democratizing it, sharing it out, and I just am so excited about that. I'm also here as a graduate of Spelman College, class of 2015. Yes, my soul sister. And this topic, it just really rings home from thinking back to when I graduated into a similar, it was a little bit better, but economic environment, and I really am just excited to be able to talk about that, talk about the future, not only for this generation, for my daughter's generation, and for the generations to come. So thanks everyone.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are you? So I am Andrea Miller, and I am super excited to be here, just like everyone before we said. Thank you to Emory for inviting me and including me in this awesome and amazing opportunity. So I am an Atlanta native, born in Atlanta, raised in Decatur, Southwest DeKalb, stand up, okay. So, but I am the owner and founder of 1212 Group Consulting, and that is a boutique consulting firm that I started in 2020. And what I do is I work with organizations, particularly high turnover organizations, to create the conditions for human talent, good human talent, to thrive and to develop. And my approach is really based on a 2-decade career in education. Currently, I work in Atlanta Public School System. I'll be leaving that role and that post actually this June. But in working in the K-12 space, and in the last 9 years working in the K-12 STEM space, trying to diversify our STEM pathways, getting more Black and brown students, more Black women into those spaces, this conversation is just so important, because a lot of times what people want to sort of ascribe, you know, the gap between where someone is and getting economic opportunity being rooted in just their effort or just their skill, and it really is more than that. Oftentimes it has to do with the system that has failed people over and over and over and over again. And so after working in K-12 education, particularly in low-income communities, and just trying to be a part of that solution, I jumped at the chance to have these types of conversations with wonderful individuals like these ladies up here. So super excited and ready to get started.
Hello, I am Mo Wisdom. I am a graduating senior at Emory University. I study interdisciplinary studies with a focus in African American studies and digital humanities. And what I've been focused on with my major as I craft it has been algorithmic bias, particularly on the impact of algorithmic bias on the experience of Black content creators online, and just those limited opportunities that are artificially limited due to algorithmic moderation, distribution processes. So I'm really excited to be a part of this panel. I met Newly this semester through my research, and I'm really just happy to continue to talk about AI and the consequences of the technologies that surround us on our ever-evolving realities, especially as a soon-to-be newly grad.
Wow, what a dynamic panel that we have for you all today. I'm honored to be your moderator. Y'all, secret, this is my first time moderating outside of campus. So I'm really excited to be here. And I hope y'all have your journals. I think B Capital had journals out there, so y'all can take some notes, because I will get my pen and pencil ready. But again, I want to thank you all for coming here this evening. Out of all the places you could have been on a Friday during World War weekend, you chose to be here to learn about how you can sharpen your skills and navigate this difficult workforce. So again, we are here in conversation with Dr. Anuli's work with AI resources, and also understanding what that means for Black women and also recent grads. So tonight, panels brings these questions into focus through the experience of two groups navigating shifts in the labor market. As I said, Black women and recent grads, which are both intersections that define me and also Mo. Like, we're in the building. And tonight, I I want to offer a space where we can be transparent, have an honest and open conversation about how we're feeling, whether we're nervous, whether we're excited, and where we're going to go in the future. This conversation is for community, so we want to hear what you are thinking. So that QR code right there, y'all see that? That is where you're going to ask all of your questions. And my lovely Spelman sister, she's somewhere over here. You know, they're everywhere, but she's going to be taking over the Q&A today. So make sure if you have questions throughout, so you don't forget what you want to say, you can put it right there in the Mentimeter. But let's get started. And I didn't introduce myself, I'm sorry. So again, I am Latisha Jones. I am also a graduating senior sociology anthropology major at Spelman College, originally from Flint, Michigan. And I met Dr. Newly. It's kind of crazy. Like, I got this opportunity from being honest and vulnerable on LinkedIn. So it was 150 days ago. It was 100 days before graduation. And I wanted to engage my community in asking for advice on how someone like me, multifaceted, I work at the intersection of beauty, technology, and community. How can I position myself to be a candidate for growing my early career? But as you can see, I've experienced having jobs taken away the same day that they were posted. But Dr. Akanapu's 404 Job Not Found report notes that generative AI is taking on the foundational work that junior employees traditionally perform, meaning that a bachelor's degree is increasingly failing to deliver on its promise of access to professional employment. I would like to ask this panel this: what persistent barriers are shaping career advancement in Atlanta today? For Black women and college grads, how do we redefine the stepping stone into the workforce when entry-level jobs are disappearing? Who would like to take on this question first? Ooh, okay.
Well, I can't be on any panel without centering it in this. So, how many of you all know the minimum wage in the state of Georgia? Who wants to just shout it out? Just shout some answers out. I'm hearing people say $7.25, $7.50, $6. Somebody said it. I heard it over here. $5.15. $5.15. So the federal minimum wage is $7.25. However, states are able to choose their own minimum wages based on the Fair Standards of Labor Act. And because of that, based on certain conditions, states can actually choose their own minimum wages. And oftentimes, the federal level is meant to be a floor. So it's like, oh, let's protect this. Everybody else is going to pick wages that are higher. And in the northern states, they do that. But I feel people who are making the federal minimum wage of $7.25, even the opportunity to be paid a living wage, which, by the way, in Georgia, the cost of living, and actually the Atlanta area more so, it would cost about $120,000 for a two-parent and two-child household just to adequately live. Like, this isn't the fancy stuff. It's not going to Sprouts every day. You know, this is just going to Aldi's. So just navigating that environment and understanding that that is the situation that our graduates are moving into. When you are in that situation, usually the people who are the most vulnerable are the people who are getting paid the least. And oftentimes, Black women, Black people overall, immigrants, and also people without a college degree, but even now, because those jobs are becoming so competitive, even people with a college degree. So just understanding what that means in terms of other ways that impacts your life. How are you affording transportation? How are you affording housing to put on your application to get a job? How are you affording all of the means to get all spruced up and everything so we can look our best for our job interview or anything? So those are different things that are really impacting us and that need to be addressed.
So I want to really highlight something that is very specific to Atlanta, because we're talking about the future of work for college graduates and for Black women. Atlanta has a wonderful STEM and tech ecosystem. It does. Recently, some of you all may have heard that Atlanta ranks #2 for STEM and STEM jobs in the country. But here's the thing. We have a great ecosystem for a variety of different reasons, right? We have a very large international, the world's busiest airport. We have a number of different industries here. All of the top industries listed on the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce website are all STEM or STEAM industries. But if you were to ask me how many students from even the city's public school system actually end up in college, it's not enough for them to benefit from this very strong ecosystem. So our colleges are attracting people from all over the country, and we want that, and that should continue to happen. But not enough students from the Metro Atlanta area are ending up in those colleges to actually access what is their birthright. Okay? So that is something that I see every day, and that kind of drives my work, and that puts their ability to have access to that, in limbo.
Thank you, Jasmine and Andrea, for grounding us in the reality of where we are. We're minimum wages in 2026. I don't even know if I can get a burger with $5.15. So imagine living and trying to provide for a family, and the cost of everything continues to rise. And also access to the resources for people that are native to this. The ATL, that's what they say. They deserve the chance to be able to benefit from this robust ecosystem that we have here, especially as it relates to STEM, because as we know, that is where the future is going. Although I am a STEAM, I love STEAM more than STEM. But I understand. Does anyone else want to answer that first question before we go into our next question? No? Yeah.
I think the thing that comes to mind especially is the realities of inaccessibility for disabled folk as well. And disabled people who are making less than $5.15 because they're allowed to be paid less. And also with this question of access to education, how neurodiversity is treated in schools, and particularly amongst this Black dimension of neurodiversity. Yeah, it's pretty out here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mo. And
Because you brought up access, though, and just talking about where access and where we are with access and resources and understanding, especially as we're talking about entry-level roles and where AI is coming in for those entry-level roles, the access that you need to even get further education and to get the tools and resources that you need is also a blocker for what we're seeing. Even being able to get into a 4-year school or even a 2-year associate's program, that is a privilege. And then when we have jobs that are being posted requiring those types of education, it actually creates it's an access issue, because how can you expect for people who have not had access to higher education to even be considered for those roles, and making that a requirement for a job? That's extremely challenging, especially in entry-level roles. So.
Thank you so much for that. Because imagine going to college for 4 years, and then the first job you look at while you're applying your senior year says you have to have 6 years of experience. With a bachelor's degree, the math doesn't matter. Where was I going to get that experience from while I was studying for school? So my next question is for you, Mo. As a fellow graduating senior and cultural worker, we are entering a workforce where there are massive expectations just to know how to use AI quickly because we are young. But companies aren't giving us proper time to actually learn on the job. How are you and your peers navigating this pressure to perform in an AI-driven landscape while beginning your career? And I'll also add to the academic integrity that can be compromised in this conversation on how we can't really use AI technically to aid us in our schoolwork. It's not encouraged because, again, of academic integrity. So I would love to hear your opinion on that, Mo.
Yeah, I think you're so right with this. There's a very confusing landscape of we're not supposed to use AI in our studies, but we're supposed to be learning these new AI models. This one does this one does that. And there's so many that are coming out currently. and learning all of the intricacies of just the landscape of artificial intelligence, what is actually useful versus what's kind of just like a cute little thing, you know, that's gonna come and fade away, right? It's confusing, and it also feels like purposefully obscuring a lot of the existing inequalities, right? Something that like sticks in my brain every single time like I look on a LinkedIn or an Indeed is one day in class, we had someone from like the Career Center come in and talk to us about, okay, this is how you need to be doing your resumes. You need to make sure that all the keywords from the application are in your resume. And someone was like, oh, should we like copy the text from the resume and put it in white at the bottom of our resume? And they were like, I don't know, maybe. I was like, maybe? You know? Even talking about like, oh, you should be using LinkedIn like social media. And I'm like, okay, so I have to use social media to find a job? Like, there's so many confusing realities of social media being this frivolous thing that we grow up with, like, oh, get off of your phone. But then now we're supposed to use LinkedIn like we use Instagram to find a job. Very confusing.
No, I would agree with that. Even I was considering like, I need a personal brand. I have to be branded on LinkedIn completely different than I'm branding myself on Instagram. And then it's like, this was supposed to be something for fun, for leisure, but now it's serious because we all familiar with the creator economy, influencer marketing, all of these things. But even for ourselves to be hired or a desirable candidate, we have to like have the hashtag open to work on our face every day. Like we have to pull up to the career fair hashtag open to work, and it's just like it's not fair because it forces you to conform into a society where we're so focused on how much we can produce, right? It's focused on how much you can produce in a way that I believe is still not fair because not everyone wants to be a content creator. Not everybody wants to post on LinkedIn every day. LinkedIn was meant to be a professional workplace where you just, your highlights, but now you have thought leaders. You have think pieces, you have reels. I don't know why they added videos on LinkedIn. Like you have LinkedIn games. Like they want you to spend more time here. And to your point, it is very confusing because what do you do? Do you build that personal brand? Do you think that's something you would want to do? Or how do you think you're gonna navigate have the LinkedIn and the personal branding situation?
So I'm someone who's an artist, and I've done some content creation. Thinking about whether or not I consider myself a content creator, I feel like it's a very specific hustle. But it feels like something that's mandatory. Like in order to access certain opportunities, you have to be marketing yourself in a very pointed, gamified, every day, or maybe every week, or maybe every month, posting something online to be seen as a certain type of person that is valuable enough, worthy of certain opportunities. And that just feels like that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like that. But I'm hoping that in the future we won't. Well, I'm hoping that things can change in a way. Go ahead.
I'll also say it's not entirely bleak. In the sense that, and I don't want to leave off on a sour note, but in my research with content creators, people are using social media to open a lot of new looking opportunities for themselves. So they don't have to just be like the dedicated blog writer. They can be like YouTuber blog writer and sell accessories as well. Like using social media to kind of create a career that feels authentic to all of the passions they have, all of the creative vision that they have for themselves. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, I do think that's a cool opportunity. Thank you so much, Mo. My next question is for Andrea. You have extensive experience developing people and providing workplace support for adult caregivers. The research shows that workforce development often assumes a baseline of stability, having time is a luxury, childcare, and transportation that many working adults simply do not have. How can organizations better design training and team environments that actually support rather than strain underrepresented groups?
Okay.
Yes, I know it's a lot, but you got this. You got it. Yeah.
All right, so it's really important to understand that this conversation about workforce development begins before people get into the workforce. It really begins in K-12, particularly secondary. Like I told you, I work in high school. Every day, there are students in grades 9 through 12 making these same type of adult decisions about where they need to be based on different needs going on in their home. There are students missing an incredibly amount of instruction and instructional time because they are caregiving for a parent. They're caregiving for a grandparent. They can't participate in sports or in the band or in that tech program after school or on a Saturday or in the summer because they have to work. Because they have to get home and help a younger brother, take care of a younger brother or a younger sister. And I and my colleagues, as much as we are trying to help them navigate these things because we don't live in their homes, we don't have the right to judge what has to get done and what their role is in these homes. So this then also happens because more than likely, these are probably going to be individuals who then are going to graduate and they're going to not be getting paid enough and still struggling with this resource of time or still struggling with childcare and things of that nature. So this starts happening really, really early. Now, in terms of a solution, I'm going to tell you how we've tried to combat that through the work that I do, and then I'll tell you what it kind of looks like outside of K-12. So the way I had to start thinking about this in the school as someone who is overseeing a STEM initiative, if I can at least get the child to school, and I know where they're going to be for 7.5 to 8 hours, I can't depend on after school, weekends, or in the summer. So if you have a program that operates during those times, are you willing to restructure and redesign your program to operate during the school day? Because that's the only time that I can guarantee that I can get this child in front of your program. If you can redesign your program to do that, I will negotiate with the administration and teachers to make sure they can miss, in this case it was a whole day, once a month, to be in your architecture program, to be in your generative AI program, to be in your robotics program. And I just secured a space and somewhere in the building, and these students reported there for the day. And in that day, they clocked the same, that one day, once a month, they're clocking the same amount of hours they would in the after school, the summer, or the Saturday program. And now we can put something on our resume, and I didn't have to disrupt some of the decisions that you have to make for your household, right? So when we start thinking about once people get out of high school, we're talking about workforce development for adults, it's going to have to be organizations and companies and corporations redesigning, not just giving a program, because you can provide access, like you can provide a door, and then you're gonna realize somebody can't get to the door, somebody don't have a thumb to open the doorknob. Access is not enough. You actually have to redesign the opportunity to meet the challenges that they have so they have the capacity to participate. So it might have to look like, hey, if somebody has this job at Wendy's, what does it look like that if you have a 6-hour shift, what does it look like if one of those hours, if we work with a funding source, where one of those hours at your job, you're getting trained on something else. You know, earlier this week I was at AT&T, and the young man, I think he graduated from high school maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and he was like, I'm interested in doing something else, I don't know what, but he also said, I have a lot of downtime. Well, something needs to be happening in the downtime, because if he has to be at work for 7 hours, and out of those 7 hours of work, he really is only interacting with people 2 of those hours, we can be repurposing some of that time, right? So we have to get creative. We spoke earlier before we came out here about a lot of these school closures that are happening, right? We have school closures happening in APS. DeKalb County had like up to 27 schools they were looking at to close, which is crazy. However, that means that there's going to be some amount of buildings that are outfitted for education that are going to be open. So what does it look like if we have to close schools for, even though it's not operating as a public school, for it to become something else, where maybe you can offer that child care or whatever the other wraparound services that there are, that we can repurpose those buildings for things like workforce development. So that's what I would say.
No, that is wonderful. I think incorporating the actual training throughout the day with those guaranteed hours make the most sense. So I don't know, I hope companies can redesign and think that way. Have you been seeing that? Well, you did it already with, or was that
So
just?
I'm one of those people that believe anything can happen.
Yeah.
It's just that people have to have the will and the intention to just put pen to paper and actually make it happen. So it really is more so a willingness, you know, and I think too often people will say something can't happen just because they don't feel like taking the time to figure it out, or they don't know what to do yet, instead of gathering people that can help get to that solution. So yeah, my quick answer is I think it can.
Yeah.
I think it can. We just need the right individuals in the room to help like bring about that solution.
Thank you so much. I hope that you all are taking away the honesty that Mo shared with being confused about how to navigate this, and also the innovation that Andrea expressed with how we can access workforce training and to better suit the needs of the everyday people that deserve it the most, right? So this conversation is not meant to make you all scared. It's meant to bring us closer together. So I hope we are doing just that. My next question is for you, Melissa. Looking at this from the employer and hiring perspective, we know that workers are constantly told that soft skills and human judgment are the most important traits. Yet, they are routinely filtered out by algorithmic screening tools that reward keyword matches. How can major employers ensure their hiring and learning practices are truly inclusive and don't unfairly penalize Black women and young graduates?
That's a great question. So first to start with is people cannot be replaced. So we work in people,
Yes.
you know, we need people, okay? So as great as AI is, and as great as technology is, we need people. People create memories and feelings, and that's just something that can't be duplicated in a workspace with AI. The second part to that, though, is the people who are in those businesses and in those spaces have to be responsible. You have to be responsible with the AI and how you're utilizing it and incorporating it into any practices that you may have. That starts at the beginning, ensuring that you're working, with ethical sourcing and making sure you are consulting if you work in a bigger environment or even in a small environment. Get with legal, right? Get with someone who can help you to ensure that what you are doing in the practices that you have, that they're responsible in the way that you're utilizing AI. And making sure also that the accessibility, and that's why I wanted to touch on it a little bit earlier, is there. How are you getting out to reach out into the community? How are you engaging with the community and truly bringing that in? And so between prioritizing your people, making sure you're being responsible, You also have to look at the roles that you are hiring for and looking at the necessities of that role and truly being considerate of the needs. Do you truly need higher education? I'm really proud of, some of the work that I've seen in analyzing the skill set that's needed for jobs versus just making sure that you have an associate's or bachelor's or master's, but truly honing in on those skills. The soft skill piece, I think you touched on also in the question. I still think this is equally important too. You have to know how to talk to people. You have to know how to engage and conduct yourself in different settings just the same as you need to be able to trust that what you put on your resume is being processed responsibly and that the businesses and corporations are handling that AI usage appropriately. So soft skills still important though.
That makes my heart smile. People cannot be replaced. I hope y'all did write that down for real because this is a serious statement right here. So thank you for that. I do have a follow-up question. So with the new creation of roles, how do you think employers are navigating what roles to actually create to suit business needs?
Yeah. It depends on the business, I'll say that, but I truly think it's also leaning into your people within your business. And so talking to your current employees and understanding what work do they need help with, what work do they identify within the business that needs to be lifted up, if you will, with additional jobs and support. So from a business standpoint, that's one of the easiest ways that you can really just lean in and know what's going on to your business. It's talk to your people. Right? Employee surveys, they're important. You should be listening to them. When your people talk to you, that is a privilege. They don't have to. So when they are talking to you, really lean into whatever your people are saying to help guide the direction that you may need to go in. But then also leaning into either your executive suite officers or even your board if you have one, and listening to economics as well. You've got to use some business and strategy here too of what you might need to be successful in whatever area you're looking at of what you may need to add to or even take away for efficiencies.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know as I'm looking through roles, some of the roles look like they just thought about them yesterday. Like, what does this actually mean? Like, you need me to do what? But I have to have 6 years of experience doing this, and it just came out yesterday. So I was really curious to how employers are thinking about creating new roles. So thank you for your insight there. Because people still matter, people still have a purpose, and those soft skills, guys, those soft skills, they matter. That's where you get the human touch, right? So last but not least, Jasmine. Yes, so we're getting into the policy of it all. Your work at the Economic Policy Institute focuses heavily on removing systemic barriers and bolstering social economic mobility. The 404 Job Not Found report stresses that we must move beyond rhetorical commitments to inclusion and actually legislate accountability for employers. What should policymakers be thinking about right now to prevent AI from deepening structural inequalities for Black women, Black workers, Black women are my favorite, but Black workers in Atlanta and Georgia as a whole?
Well, I don't really want to harken back to Mo's question, really, because I think that part of the question about access and everything really reminded me about the report where you're talking about strategic abstraction. There's first like a digital divide where in rural areas and everything like that, where there's like a lack of access to Wi-Fi and everything. Then there's also the strategic abstraction that Anuli speaks about that's discussing how there's an intentional, it's intentional how there's not enough information or things are not well defined or here's a simple definition but we don't go through enough. So bear with me, I'm getting to the solution, but I have to outline the problem a little bit more first. This is what I do. So we talked about minimum wages in Georgia and then at the federal level, so $5.15 in Georgia, $7.25 at the federal level. But just talking about how that doesn't just stop at, like the wage issue doesn't just stop at minimum wages, it actually goes far beyond that. And just relevant to this panel, I want to share a couple of some data and some statistics about that. So the first thing is Women's Equal Pay Day, that was a week ago, March 26th. So Equal Pay Day is the day in the new year that women would have to work to catch up with men's wages in the year before. So for women, we would have to work all the way to March 26th to make up with the average wages of men from last year. For Black women specifically, that day isn't until July. Sit with it? Yes, July. Still working to make up. We're not even there yet. So just putting that into perspective about how the wage issue is so real. In light of that, especially that it's something that disproportionately affects Black women, 42% of Black women live in states in which hair discrimination is still legal. So all of these beautiful Black women on this panel, we would have to be thinking about that as we enter the workplace, how we advance or if we even get the job. Also, meanwhile, the economic EEOC, I'm tripping over my words today, was started by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the idea was that it was going to be used so that it could actually increase what we now think of as DEI initiatives. However, the current presidential administration has weaponized it, and instead of it being a tool to increase accessibility, it actually is kind of inversely working to attack DEI programs and trying to use them to say, well, this was not inclusive of white men. So what do we do about that? So these are just a couple of things as we think about the current landscape of things. And as we think about that, there's a reason that all of these things are possible today. And part of that is some of the work that we study at the Economic Policy Institute called the Rooted in Racism series. And a lot of this is rooted in what's called the Southern Economic Development Model. We've all heard, Georgia's so good for business. Oh, it's so good for business, but we never hear Georgia's good for workers. And that's what I want to hear one day. And that is because of the Southern Economic Development Model that says, oh, come to the South where there's low wages. We don't have lots of regulations. You can just get cheap labor and everything like that. And that's built off literally off of the back of Black people, because it's rooted in racism and in a history of slavery in the South that's perpetuated in policy today. So the policies that lawmakers need to be thinking about right now are, how do we increase wages? How do we say, hey, it is actually despicable that it's 5:15 in Georgia. I never want to hear that again. I never want to be able to say that again. The only place, there's very few places in the South that it's actually higher, and it's like census South, like Maryland. But Maryland, and Virginia just passed their minimum wage, and they're closer to the South. So if Virginia did it, why can't we do it? We can. We absolutely can. We can pass the Crown Act. We can say, hey, they're not going to allow gender discrimination through hair discrimination. We can say we're not going to allow Georgia to be a place that's good for business but not good for people, because we are very resistant to unions, where we can build power and tell our managers and everyone what we want as opposed to it being imposed on us, and making sure that we are opening opportunities for apprenticeships, good jobs, good training for everybody, because we deserve it.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Jasmine. What a wonderful way to get to wrapping things up. I hope y'all wrote things down. I didn't see very much movement, but I hope y'all have great memories. But thank you so much for that. And yes, everything does have to do with enslavement. Everything does. And we see that constantly reflected in the policies that are created and how we're able to even increase our upward mobility as we build here in the South. So you beat me to it, but I was gonna talk about the strategic abstraction, but since you touched on it, I do want to go back to it. So please check out Dr. Anuli's report. Please read it. It is great, it's colorful, and it's fun. But the report points out that AI literacy is often used as a vague buzzword. So it's not clearly defined, which is what strategic abstraction means. So if you could give one piece of practical advice to anyone in the room navigating the confusing labor market, what would it be? And then we're going to open up for Q&A, because I hope y'all have been putting the questions in for the mid-meeting. Okay, perfect. So one piece of practical advice for anyone navigating this confusing labor market, what would it be? Oh, yeah. We can start with you. Okay.
Happy to start. You know, I got a lot to say, so you know. The idea of one. Wow. Okay, so one thing that I would say is to own your brilliance, because people will try to define you and tell you everything like, oh, well, you don't know Excel this, you don't know this, that, you don't know AI this or whatever. You know, just like when I graduated, I remember my first like real job was special assistant, social media and special assistant to the president. And I didn't know Instagram because I'm not cool like that. So just thinking about like those things that we discount sometimes, and understanding like these are real skills, and owning those skills as you move in, and making sure that you're only going into those interviews or going to your workplace when you're asking for your raise, or going into your college after you graduate college and you're telling people what you're doing, or just looking for the next opportunity. Say, oh no, I know this because I am an expert on this lived experience. I am an expert on this social media or whatever platform. I'm a this, or I know this book or anything like that, and just understanding that brings value. And don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't, because it is so valuable, it is so important, and I just can't wait to see how that manifests for especially both of you. Thank you.
So I think my piece of advice would be, because I think in this age of like AI literacy, it's easy to get lulled into, okay, so I need to get this certification, I need to get this credentialing, I need to download this app. They said just 1 hour a day, and I'll be an expert in AI. But what I would tell people to do is focus more on things that won't fade, meaning focus more on just how to discern and ask the right questions of whatever is being developed and introduced, right? So you'll never be able to out-credential yourself, right? There's always going to be something new to learn. But just having the capacity to learn can check that box, right? And you'll figure that out, to your point, when you get the job or get the opportunity. But what's more important is understanding how to question, when is the appropriate time or place to use AI? What are the spaces where humans and the human knowledge and the human touch is more effective, depending on the type of work that's being done? What is an age-appropriate or industry-appropriate way to interact and to infuse AI, as opposed to just looking at it as, you know, we need to become an expert in Claude and ChatGPT, and that's just going to solve all of our issues, right? Because that ability to question and discern, that won't ever go outside, regardless of what comes after AI. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for that. We do have to transition into our Q&A, so I am going to pass the mic to my lovely Spelman sister, Danya.
Hello everyone, my name is Danya Nicholson and I am a graduating senior computer science major at Spelman College. Throughout this panel, we've been collecting your questions through Mentimeter, and we have time for just a few of them. So first, for anyone on the panel, how can we create new AI jobs without gentrifying Atlanta and alienating minority communities in Atlanta? And then one person said they're struggling with AI data centers since they're harmful for mostly Black communities, depleting their resources. So what is your opinion on that?
Those are great questions, and thank you for including Mother Earth into this discussion. Thank you for bringing this here.
How can we create new AI jobs without gentrifying Atlanta and alienating minority communities in Atlanta?
I'll take a go at the first question. I don't think there's a yes, no, or right or wrong in that. So let me just start with that. But something we can be doing as far as what we can do to help orient the community with access to AI and not further isolate is really helping to educate. That's really where it would start with, making sure resources are available, making sure they're accessible so that the education can be there, so that you can learn more about something you're not maybe as knowledgeable as you could be right now. That way, if it's within the community, it then won't push it further outside of the community. So that's what kind of comes to mind first, is starting that groundwork of education, keeping that close, so that way those jobs can go towards people who are already within those communities.
I think for the second part of the question, it kind of goes back to what you're saying about education. So a lot of times people will hear that these conversations are going on and they'll just see a headline and they'll say they're for or against something. And I think it has to go back to, before we decide what we're for or against, what is it? Because like most people couldn't even tell you actually what a data center is, but they know who was for it and who was against it, and they just make a decision based off of that. This is not my opinion one way or the other, but I think in our community, we need to start with defining words and defining like, what exactly is this? Who are the experts that can tell us how this will harm our community? And for those who feel like it can help, explain that. And don't underestimate people's capacity to understand things. Don't keep people out of conversations just because they don't have a degree and don't run in certain circles and they're not a member of some kind of, of an organization. Everyone needs to be a part of it. I think it's a good starting point.
So I wanted to speak to the second question. So yeah, we need to start with education, as knowledge is power, but also then we need to listen. Because I think that as we're talking about these data centers and stuff like that, we never ask the community, what do you want? Yes, it's going to impact your water, it's going to impact jobs in the future, it's going to impact all these different things. So before you welcome that into your community, like a good neighbor, I want to know who's there. I want to know, hey, and I want to be able to say, how is this, what do I want if this is going to come into my community? So we need a community benefits agreement to say, hey, well, if I even welcome you into my community, if you have to be, then let's say I want to make sure you're hiring people who in my community. I want commitments to how you're regulating the water use. I want commitments on how you're regulating the energy bills and everything like that. You're coming into my neighborhood. You're my neighbor. Let's be a good neighbor to me. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Be there.
Yeah, I just wanted to point to the data center that's being proposed, not even a block from here, really a block from the West End station, and just an acknowledgement of, especially since the Stop Cop City movements of 2022, 2023, beyond, there's a lot of community organizers here that are doing the work to advocate and to bring the people together to have these conversations about education and equity. And I'd say when we're thinking about data centers, it's important to tap into those communities, not just conversations that are happening at a certain maybe institutional level, but also on the ground, people who are going to be living around these things and what they're saying. And there's definitely I've seen some different events and panels coming up about that. So definitely look into those kinds of organizations that you can tap into around those things.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Or
Yes, we have time for one more question. So, what are your thoughts on the use of AI in screening job applications, particularly regarding AI bias and its inability to recognize candidate potential beyond measurable experience? And then for a second part to that question, would you encourage students in recent grads to utilize AI when searching and applying for entry-level jobs, and if so, to what extent?
I want to say something too. So the constant back and forth when applying for jobs is boom. You get the description for the job. You say, hey, chat, make my resume sound fit this description. I do that. Then the bot that does the resume screening is wait, none of these keywords actually mean anything to us, so we're gonna go to the next candidate. So I don't know if y'all ever seen that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other. That's exactly what I feel is happening with my resume once I send it out. So I too want to know the answer to this question.
I feel like I touched on it a little bit.
Yes, you did. You did.
and I'm so sorry, these questions are a little long, so I'm like trying to remember the beginning of it, but I'll try to start at the beginning of just the utilization of AI, whether you are building your resume, whether you're submitting it, utilization of certain words within your resume that you are submitting. First and foremost, something you can do that's very helpful if you are going to utilize AI is learning how to truly utilize AI and how to speak and prompt appropriately in AI. I think that's something, if you start to use it a little bit more, you'll get a little more comfortable in, but making sure you're utilizing the right prompts so that as you submit that resume or as you submit, even if you place the requisition for the job into ChatGPT or any of the other ones, that you are still prompting the AI for what you're looking for. Think of it as AI as like an eager intern. They want to give you whatever that you're looking for, but it is up to you to help provide that guidance and up to you to help provide the technology with what you need. So that is something I would recommend, or that I would suggest if you're looking to utilize AI, that you have to start to learn how to actually utilize it. You don't know what's on the other end. And so that's the other part to it, is you don't know. Utilize the words that are in the requisition as much as you can. That's not a new concept though, y'all, right? Like we've been doing that for a very long time, and making sure that your resume aligns appropriately with the job that you're looking for. And so screening words, that kind of stuff, that's not new, but it is true. You don't know what's on the other side. So it's really on the front end, what can you do within your control? And something you can do is really work on the prompts that you are inputting into the AI technology.
Yes, thank you so much, Melissa, because that is true. Each one, they're not created equally. I say that, yeah. But I want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists. Give them a round of applause for such a rich conversation. And thank you all for being here with us today. We still have more to come with a fireside chat with Dr. Equitable tonight to talk directly about her work, and I'll pass the mic back to our host. Thank you so much.
My name is Dr. Anulia Canaboo, and I'm pleased to be with you all here tonight. One more round of applause for our panelists. Thank you all.